Hello everyone, welcome to episode 7. I think we're on episode 7 of the Grazer mower revival. This is just a finishing touches and official test run episode. So before I turned the camera on and started filming, I actually did some stuff first to make sure it went okay. So I've got the fenders on both sides. I got the deck hooked up. I have the deck drive belt hooked up. Gearbox is on. I'm going to finish putting the engine cover panels on. The blades have been put on. I've greased the spindles. I verified that everything works. It spins just fine. It goes in just fine. So one of the things that I did have to do is change out the PTO switch. It works and everything. I mean, it works like it should, but I had to change it because where is it? All right, so on the old switch right here, when you're looking at it to hook it up, it'll actually be like this, okay? You got a connector that goes here on these 3 tangs, and then you got another connector that goes on these bottom 2. And the way it works is, this one that has the 2 on it, and I'm not taking the dash panel out to show you again, but if you see the wiring harness video, you'll know what I mean. Freaking bugs. Anyway, this is the one where the power comes in and goes out. So the power comes in through the red wire. I think it's on this tang, and it goes out through the black and yellow wire. It goes to the circuit breaker. From the circuit breaker, it goes to the clutch and everything. So the way the switch works, when you turn it on, it sends power through this connector here, these series of wires. And these series of wires, without going into it, in too much detail, it's tied to the travel switch, the park brake switch, the seat switch, and power has to travel through all of those to complete the circuit, so it will send power out through this black and yellow wire. And if any of these switches are not hooked up, functioning correctly, or if they are functioning correctly and your lever lock's not engaged, or your parking brake's not on, or something like that, then the mower won't start, or it won't engage PTO, whatever it is. So to remedy that problem, because I wasn't sure I found the right switch, I think I found one that will work, but I just don't know. It's a John Deere part number, and instead of having 6 tangs on it, it's only got 5. This one up here is missing, and it is the right orientation and everything. I think right now this is in the on position. Yeah, it's in the on position, so push it down to off. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, I think I found the right part number. I'll put it down below and everything. It's got a Stens part number on it too, this switch. And it looks exactly like this. It's just missing this top tang over here. And it's oriented just like so. And I think that's right. But I'll put it down below if you guys want to try it out and see if it works. But I have no clue because I haven't purchased it. I just went to the local CarQuest, bought one of these toggle switches. I essentially bypassed this entire set of safety wire circuit crap because I've only got one safety switch hooked up anymore, and that's the parking brake. The seat is hot wired, and this is disconnected, the travel switch, because it's not working, and I don't really want to sit here and wait a week for switches to arrive. So I just bypassed it, just these 2, power in, power out on this one. So the power comes in to the bottom one, or the off tang on this, and then it goes out through the on, and there you go. That's just a Dorman toggle switch. There are others. You just want a switch that can handle the amperage. So if you get a 30 or more amperage toggle switch, it should handle it just fine and be okay. So that's the biggest thing I had to change. But when I got done with that, I mean, you can engage the deck. Granted, I didn't have blades on it when I was testing it because I didn't want to create a bunch of air movement and throw dust everywhere in the shop. But when I was testing it to make sure everything was rotating, okay, I had it maybe on a third throttle, a third of the way up on the throttle, and I kicked the PTO in, and it just started spinning, no problem. No belt slipping, no nothing. But I haven't gotten it hot yet, and we're going to see how that does here in a minute. So that's the biggest thing I had to do. Everything else is, nothing much has changed. I'll let the deck down here in a minute. I'll show you how I got the deck drive belt to the gearbox hooked up. And I don't think I have to align gearbox pulley. No, it looks pretty well in line with the arm. And there's no way I'm going to get that off there anyway. It is on there, and they say to use Loctite on it. So, oh yeah, before I forget. So this piece of pipe, I had to cut bushings for these bolts here. I had to replace these bolts because I didn't have them. So on the back side here, it's much like it is where the arm attaches to the subframe. You've got a 1/2-inch bolt. You got that big bushing that goes inside the bore on the arm. Then the bolt goes through the arm and that bushing, and then it's just a regular sized drilled hole on the other end, and you just put a lock washer and a nut on it and you're good. So I did have to cut some new bushings, and they're not, I had a chunk of pipe here I was going to show you as a demonstration, but that's all right. We'll grab this one here. So this is some old pipe that came out of the house. It had been there for a long time. This was years ago we replaced all this, by the way. But this is some old galvanized steel pipe that came out of the house. And the outside of this is perfect to fit in the bore on that arm. The inside diameter is a little loose on a 1/2-inch bolt, but that's all right. The big thing is it's a lot tighter than it was, and it's not going to flop around and be loose and stuff like that. So, metal pipe falling sound effect. Anyway, that's all done. So I'm going to fire it up and come out here, and this is what I'm going to mow. I'm going to come around and I'll mow that little driveway, and I'll get this area here. I won't mow those tires. I'll pick them up and put them in the tire pile. And I'll mow this, and if it does a good job here and everything looks okay, then I'll be good to go to mow the rest of the yard. And I've got a lot of yard to mow, and I got my grandparents' yard to mow too because their mower doesn't work. So yeah, got a lot of stuff to do, but everything's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and get the deck down and just get out there and see how it does. All right, final checklist and a couple of other things. These pins right here are supposed to be what sets your deck height. So I'm not exactly 100% sure on how you're supposed to set the deck on this thing. The book is pretty vague about it, but this is the primary factor in your deck height. And I believe they said that one part of the deck should be, I don't know, like a 1/4 inch higher or something than the front. I don't remember exactly, but the drive belt for the PTO, I routed it like that, and it spins. I don't know how well it's going to spin or how long it's going to do that. The book was not very clear. It just said replace the deck drive belt, which I thought was pretty damn vague. That was helpful. But I believe this is all where it was set before, because that's where the pins were at. Well, I mean, they were down here, but this is... The shop is not perfect, but it is fairly level. And so I've got... It's where it wants to rest right now. This is where it likes to be. So I'm just going to leave it there and go mow with it and see what happens. I have no idea if these tires will hold air. I will air them up after I verify this is going to cut. So they're stiff enough to go ahead and run a little bit. I am missing a panel here. I know that. It's out there somewhere. I just don't want to go get it right now. All that's done. I've greased everything. The tail wheel, the spindles. I have not greased these deck wheels, and I'm not going to right this minute. Just trying to think here, because me going over the final little bits and pieces of stuff is as much for my reference and checklist as it is for your information. So I've got all that done. I should be able to fold the chute up and back it right out of the shop. That's how I planned it, and I mean, it's going to be tight, but I think I'm skilled enough I can go ahead and do it. And the deck will be raised. Now, an interesting thing about this mower, they paid so close attention to the design. They balanced it so perfectly that if you raise the deck up and lock it, you can, with one hand and not a lot of effort, pick the back end of the mower up. That's how perfectly balanced this thing is. And it also goes to show how heavy that is and how unstable it is with the deck up in the air. But, you know, that's going to have to be how I do it to get it out of the shop. And that should be everything worth mentioning. I mean, I've already checked the oil. It's okay. And everything else looks all right. You know, The only way to see if there are any more problems or if I forgot something is to go out and mow. Oh, one other thing. So right here, if you watch the deck assembly video, you remember there's an idler under here on the tensioner. I had to raise this panel up. I ended up doing 5 washers on each end, and it looks a little goofy, but it's got some push in it now, so it should not be interfering with anything. And everything's still spinning okay. I've greased the gearbox. All that stuff is done. So I'm going to go get those tires picked up, back this out of here, and see what happens. All right. Oh yeah, that'll be fine. Got boss man to come out and mow. So it's not doing too bad. Get over here. It's leaving a little bit of rough stuff, but it's not awful. I don't know if that's just a deck adjustment or because the blades are rusty. I don't know. But it's pretty heavy stuff. It's not dense necessarily, it's just heavy. So we're gonna run it a little bit, see how it does. Had to put another PTO switch in it because I don't know if I left it on the bench or not. I didn't. The switch we had on there was a Dorman, and we just bought it today, and it shot crap. So I put another one on, and it seems to be working okay. We'll see how long it stays like that. There's the, oh, those are the sheet metal screws. Hang on. There's the, that's what we had put in, and it did not work very well. So stuff's working good now, though. Okay, so it's a little bit later. It's doing good so far. We're just north of the garden here, and it's not cutting too bad given how heavy this stuff is. We had to flip the discharge chute up, but it's actually not doing too bad. So it seems to be running good so far. We'll just finish up and see how it looks at the end of the day. All right, end of the day for mowing. We got a bunch of stuff that was pretty dense, like this out here. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that? It sounds like, oh, there he is. Hi, Power Stroke Panther. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Oh my gosh. All right, it's okay. It's okay. All right. All right, you're a good kitty. So, anyway, we mowed some pretty heavy stuff. It did good with the cutting. Had to go back over some stuff a couple times just to get it nice and even. I think it was just because the grass we were trying to cut was too heavy. We did have to reposition the drive belt. So now it goes under that idler and then back up on the V idler like so. And I'm trying to get a good look at it here. Well, it looks like it's doing okay. Didn't detect a lot of slippage or anything. When you got into something real heavy, you could tell it was starting to slip a bit. I know, Cat. But otherwise, it was okay. Drive was fine. I think this steering lever is a little, well, no, I guess it'd be this one. I think this one's a little loose. May have to adjust the cables a little bit, but it did okay on the cutting side. So, like I said earlier, I assume I left that clip in. Anyway, we had to replace a switch because what happened was you start it up, it would run fine. You flip the switch in, it's okay. And you can flip it on and off while you're mowing, and it was just fine. This switch was okay. It didn't cause any problems. But then I parked this. I opened the lid. I was going to blow the thing out with compressed air, but then the air compressor wouldn't start, and I got tired of screwing with it. So I go to start this back up, it won't start. So I flipped the switch a couple times, and it's not doing anything. So I unplug it. Then I blow a fuse, so I put another fuse in. It's like the 5th fuse I put in this damn mower. And then still wouldn't start. So I threw the parking brake off, and it went ahead and started then. So I don't know why that is. I guess it wasn't perfectly in neutral and it wasn't starting. But the safety switches are not hooked up. So I don't really know. It's very irritating though. I'm not really pleased. So the seat is still somewhat comfortable, even if it's a little bit beat up. It rides nice, very stable. It cuts really well. The deck is at a good height, I think. It's not, it looks like it's high off the ground, but it's really not. You get out there and you start mowing with it, and it's really not bad. It cuts very well, and it cuts pretty close to the ground. Just, it does not like the heavy stuff. It goes a little slow there. So I parked it back in the shop because I have to do the switch thing, and apparently this is going to eat fuses, so I'm going to have to find a heavier duty toggle switch. And I got I got 2 more. Let me see if I can find it here. All right, so I got this one yesterday at Orscheln, and I don't know how much it's going to handle. It says it's only 10 amp or 20 amp, but I don't know if it's going to handle it very well. Now, the only other switch I have is right here. So this is the only other switch I have. It's an on, off, on. And it's old. It's a 6 position. But this thing, this actually used to be, when we saw the cake feeder on my pickup, that's the switch that you would hold to run the motor on the cake feeder. And the cake feeder was custom made. That's why it was like that. But that switch is old. And I assume it still works. I don't know why it wouldn't. But I think what I need to do is just order a heavy-duty industrial toggle switch. Because one of the problems I've noticed with these, they're nice and all, but they're loose like this. And then the plastic chunks come off, and then they push in like so. And they just don't want to work anymore. And that's not going to work at all because I disconnected the wires. So that's going to be a major problem. But other than the switch and the fuses, I mean, really, nothing went wrong with this. It's not leaking anywhere. It didn't make any weird noises. We weren't slipping belts unless you got in something really, really heavy. You know, so it did good. I'm really happy with it. Everything runs nice on it. So unless I pull the dipstick tomorrow and it's either way too low or way too high, the Grazer should be done. And it should be right, correct, and proper. I'm going to throw the charger on the battery just to make sure it's charged up good. I don't know that the alternator's working all that well. And how much fuel did we burn? How much fuel did we burn? Well, you guys can't see. I'm trying to shake the mower. Okay, it looks like we burned about 2 gallons. Honestly, that's not much worse than the John Deere would do. And yeah, that's actually not bad. I didn't have the tank all the way full, so it burned about 2 gallons, I would say. That is not bad at all for what it did. 2-cylinder motor. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. So hopefully tomorrow I can make something work. That switch may not be shot. It might just be me. I don't know. But there's no way. Is the old switch still here? It is. There's no way for me to make this work because it has to go through these here. So unless I take all the safety wires and just wire them together, I don't know. But see, then the problem is these two, you know, the internals are also shot. So it doesn't matter if all the safety stuff is hooked up. If you switch this on and it's on all the way, it'll short out and die. Kill the mower. Because it's, yeah. So toggle switch is going to be a problem. Fuse is going to be a problem. Otherwise, we're all good. I think I did everything right. I'm going to lift the deck up in the morning, see what it looks like under there. Yeah. All good. So before I go, I will show you guys what I was mowing with before I got this Grazer working. Come on, Power Stroke Panther. Let's go look at the old mower. Yeah, there's a lot of junk around here. And the John Deere will just join that pile. So, feast your eyes, ladies and gentlemen. This John Deere LT 160 lawn tractor, 42-inch cut. I mowed the crap out of this property with this mower. It's got like 2,800 hours on it. We've had this thing for 7-8 years. It's just been a real trooper. And of course the hood was one of the first things that quit on it. I robbed the battery out of it because I thought it would work for the Grazer, and it didn't, but it's still an okay battery, so I'll hang on to it. But I mean, yeah, it's just rough. And what finally killed it was not the motor. The motor's perfectly fine. But the hydrostatic transmission back here is what is bad. It was throwing belts and making all kinds of weird noises, and it just didn't have any get up and go. I mean, I'd mash on the forward pedal, it just would not move. But I mean, it cut a lot of stuff. It cut as much as that Grazer has to cut, but it had to work twice as hard to do it. So yeah, it's been a good machine. We're probably going to rob the motor out of it and put it in another old mower where the transmission and everything's still good. And we'll just remember this thing because it did good for a long time. And it always started. I think I changed the oil once in it. I had to change the oil once in it, and that's all. I never had to put a starter in it. I put one fuel filter on in its lifetime. I mean, it was just a real good mower. it took a lot of abuse. It took a pounding, I'll tell you what. So that's what we used to mow with, or what I used to mow with. And now we've upgraded. So back to the Grazer. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to mention. I don't think so. Everything, the pulleys are in alignment. That was a concern I had, and they're all okay. Yeah, I'm just real pleased with the Grazer. So it should be okay. I'll get that switch and stuff figured out, and there's not going to be another video on that. I'm going to mow with this for a while, and then in the future I'll put together kind of a review. I'll go over what all I bought for it and what all it cost, and just so people have an idea of what they might be getting into if they get one of these old Grazers. So I appreciate you guys sticking around for this series. The last video in it will be out later. I don't know how much later. By the time you see this one, I don't know how long it's going to be. It's May 30th right now, 2023. So who knows how long it's going to be before you see part 8. But I do appreciate all of you who stuck around through this whole series. I know it was a production. I know it's not the best. I know I go on long-winded rants and ramblings, and I've seemed confused and out of it at points. And you guys stuck through and you watched all that to this point. I really do appreciate it. I hope you found this information useful. I hope you found this rebuild entertaining. If you have no interest in one of these Grazers, I hope you at least found it entertaining. And, yeah. So now that this project's done, we're not going to get on that for a while, because that's probably going to come first. So we're not going to do another Grazer for a little bit. But there's plenty of other projects. I've got plans. So appreciate you guys watching, sticking around. That'll do it for this video, and we'll just catch you in the next one, whatever that is and whenever it'll be. All right, quick little bit of bonus footage here. I thought about not doing this, but and then the more I thought about not doing it, the more I felt bad, because I felt like I was lying to people. So this spindle shaft just fell out of the mower. And reason why, and it's my fault, and I should have thought about it, but I got in a hurry, and I wasn't thinking about it. There was this particular pulley and spindle. There's a point where you get the pulley onto the shaft, and then you have to really suck it on there more. That made it a bitch to get back apart, but I didn't do that when I put it on the mower. I got it tight, and it felt like it was tight, but it wasn't tight enough. And so what happened was, as it ran, it was loose, and so that just, spun out of there and dropped right out. And I didn't have the set screw in tight enough either. So another problem was there was a lot of crud on the bottom washer where the blade saddle is at on the bottom of the spindle shaft. There's a lot of crud between the washer and the blade saddle. And so that was kind of a cushion in there. And so since I didn't get it tight enough especially, it wasn't even sucked up all the way. So this time, I definitely got it tight enough. And I checked that one, and they were both okay. I told myself that after the initial little bit of mowing, I was going to come back on here before I started and double check and make sure everything was tight. And I didn't, and I should have. And I have now, and everything's all right. The bolt there that the tensioner pivots on, that nut was starting to travel up. So it's a good thing I did drop the spindle when I did. It's okay, nothing got damaged, but I made sure everything was double tight. I'll put it all back together, and we'll be good to go. Another thing I will add, I don't know that the switch was really the problem, because it's been working fine today so far, and it won't now that I said stuff like that. But I mean, it's still, turn a key on here. Oh yeah, it's working good. And none of the wires and stuff are getting damaged or hit with anything. So it's still mowing just fine. But I wanted to make a video telling people, hey, after you get this together, mow with it for an hour or two, and then take everything back apart, double check and make sure it's tight. Because you don't want this stuff coming loose on you. That is a bad time. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in real quick, because I'd feel bad otherwise. And also, these are going to get more grease. I've put 25 strokes in each one so far, and I think they need a little more, because a spindle was fairly hot when I went to grab it. Blade was cold, but the spindle was kind of hot. So I'm going to put some more grease in it, and I'll grease the gearbox some more and some other stuff, and it'll be fine. But yeah, don't just assume everything's fine. After it breaks in, it's going to wear, and it's going to loosen up. You're going to have to come back in and tighten it, and I'll have to check it again when I'm done doing the bit I'm doing this morning before I go do more, just to be safe. So there was that, and then also some people probably going to wonder, should you go ahead and use Loctite on these bolts? Should you? You can if you want. I'm still maintaining that I don't like Loctite and I don't want to use it. You can if you want. That is completely up to you. It wouldn't hurt if you just rather take the little extra step and put Loctite on, you can. But in the case of this particular pulley and spindle setup, Loctite was not going to save that because it was already loose. It's better that I didn't put Loctite on because that allowed the bolt to spin and everything to drop, and so I wasn't tearing stuff up. And I got lucky this time. So you can use Loctite if you want. I wouldn't. Well, I mean, I'm not going to. I'm not even going to say I wouldn't advise you. You do what you want. If you want to use Loctite, I'm not going to cuss on you for it, but I hate it, so I am not going to put it on. I will gamble that friction fit, just get her nice and tight, is good enough in my case. So, sorry about the little extra, just a bit of bonus footage. Otherwise, this is doing just fine. So, yeah,